This podcast is sponsored by the Fargo-Moorhead West Fargo Chamber of Commerce. Get involved at fmwfchamber.com.
Hello there, and welcome back to the Inforum Business Beat podcast. I'm your host, Thomas Avanella, returning this week. Let's get you caught up on what's happened. Slim Chickens opened Monday, July 18th in South Fargo. The restaurant had initially planned to open last fall, however the opening date was pushed back due to shipping delays. The menu at Slim Chickens features chicken tenders, wings, sandwiches, salads, wraps, chicken and waffles, and house-made dipping sauces. Slim Chickens is open from 10:30 a.m. to 10 p.m. daily. Replay Games is back in business, having relocated to a new space on Broadway. Replay Games is a gaming cafe and arcade featuring over 6,000 tabletop and video games. Co-founder Cassidy Schnass told forum reporter Helmut Schmidt that the new spot on Broadway will be transformational for the business. Gamers are invited to visit from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. Monday through Saturday, or from noon to 8 p.m. on Sundays. Further down Broadway, Helmut Schmidt also reported that the Blarney Stone at the Hotel Donaldson hopes to open by Halloween. The former Hodo Lounge will be turned into a Blarney Stone. Additionally, renovations to the 17 luxury hotel rooms will turn it into, quote, essentially a brand new hotel, Jim Poolman, president and managing partner of Slancha Holdings, said. Slancha Holdings purchased the Hotel Donaldson in March from Karen Stoker, the building's previous owner. The lounge had closed in August 2020 and did not reopen. A North Dakota man and his financial advising firm have been barred from doing business in the state. Jeremy L. Carlson and Jameson Financial Capital are accused of stealing nearly $18 million in customer assets. Additionally, Carlson is alleged to have used nearly $4 million in client funds to purchase ownership of a medical marijuana business. A list of charges against Carlson and the firm were announced Monday, July 18th by the North Dakota Securities Department. Carlson did not respond to the firm's request to address the accusations. Yet another company is moving from the Golden State to Fargo. Kota, a supply chain software company founded in California, will be opening a new office in the Exchange Building downtown. The news was announced by the Greater Fargo-Moorhead Economic Development Corporation Monday, July 18th. Kota's relocation is a credit to the area's efforts to become recognized as a hub for technology, the GFM EDC said. Hundreds gathered at the Fargo Civic Center on Thursday for TEDx Fargo. The event made its return after a 2-year hiatus due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Highlighting the morning's list of presentations was Christopher Martin. Martin was the cashier at Cup Foods in Minneapolis who accepted a $20 counterfeit bill from George Floyd. From there, he had an up-close view of Floyd's murder and the events that followed. In the afternoon, NDSU Bison quarterbacks coach Randy Hedberg offered insights into the creation of the Bison football dynasty. Martin and Hedberg were one of several speakers who addressed a broad range of topics, including sustainable agriculture practices, preventing suicide, and even owning meme NFTs. Tammy Swift was watching remotely last week when North Dakota's most famous entrepreneur, Dot Henke, addressed a panel in Minot. It was Tammy who broke the news in November that Dot's Pretzels was being sold to Hershey's, and now she's with us today to give us all the latest from the Dot's dynasty. Tammy, thanks for being here.
You bet.
And for those who don't know the story, and at this point, I really don't know how you couldn't know this story, tell us a little bit of background information on this great Dot's empire that she started.
Sure thing. I think you're right. A lot of people know this famous story because it's so cool. But Dot was retired and she attended one of those great North Dakota wedding dances or receptions. And she had some Chex Mix that they had served there and she loved it. And she especially liked those little twisted butter spindle pretzels in the mix. But she thought that the seasoning mix was a little too spicy. And so she thought, I could build on this. So she went home and she tracked down some butter spindle pretzels and she just started experimenting with all kinds of different seasonings until she found a pretzel that she liked. And everyone else liked it too. And so eventually that morphed into her basically contacting almost every convenience store of a certain size in the state and sending them sample boxes of Dot's pretzels. And then she was just really vigilant about following up and making sure that they didn't need more pretzels, getting their feedback, and yet try not to be a pest. She was very North Dakota that way. And she was so good about that. And pretty soon the pretzels had taken a foothold and became a hugely popular product. And I think one of the stats I saw was like in 2021, her pretzels represented 55% of the growth in the pretzel portion of the snack food market. So just a giant success story. And so giant that in fall of 2021, Hershey's actually bought Dots for 1.2 billion as part of a package deal that also included Dot's co-manufacturer, Pretzels Inc. And that was just huge news around here. It was just amazing that something like this could happen from something that someone just created in their kitchen.
And so now that we've got some of the background here, what did you learn this past week about Dots pretzels, just about, like I said before, the whole empire?
Well, I was just impressed by her hard work ethic and her entrepreneurship. She told us that she actually used to answer every email and phone call that she got, and that she even had her phone number on the bag, if you can imagine that. And I just thought that was so cool in a day where, you go on a chat for a company website and you end up talking to a bot, or you can't even find a phone number to talk to anybody. And she just really believed in the power of personal connection and communicating with customers. She also said she really relied on her employees and her clients, her customers, for determining which types of spice mixes she was going to do. So she was just really paid attention to what the customer wanted. And I also was just impressed by her hard work ethic. She grew up on a dairy farm. So, she was no stranger to hard work. And, she talked to working like from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m., 7 days a week. She talked about before Christmas, one day she packed 152 boxes of pretzels all by herself. Plus, she answered the phone and did everything else. I mean, she's just a whirlwind. She's just an amazing lady. And so those were the things that really impressed me about her.
And Dot kind of brought a crowd of her own up in Minot last week. Is that correct?
Yeah, I don't even think she deliberately brought them. I think there are just people who worship Dot, and I call them Dottophiles. They're just people who are so impressed with her, and they can't believe that this down-to-earth lady standing in front of them has produced a $1 billion business, because she doesn't act like she doesn't act pretentious or like, oh, I have a lot of money. She seems like someone who acts exactly like she did before she even made a dollar doing this. So, it's kind of an unusual thing to see nowadays, and I could see why people admire her so much.
And now, what's the latest update with Dot? What is she up to now?
Well, one thing I definitely picked up was that she's a pretty private lady. So she really does continue to keep a low profile. She continues to be an important partner on her husband Randy's farming operation near Minot. And she said very seriously that they have meetings almost every day about what they need to do on the farm that day. And she goes to every one of those meetings. And even when she did her presentation, she said, uh-oh, I'm missing my farm meeting. So it's a big deal. But, communication and pros and cons and examining what's working and what isn't, that's really where she learned how to do her business. She learned that from the farm. She applied that to her business. So beyond that, she said she is keeping her door open for entrepreneurs who might want to bounce their ideas off her and get some objective feedback. She said it would be like a Shark Tank, but after talking to her a little bit, I don't see her as being a shark. I think she would be a lot gentler than that, but she would be honest and she would tell you what's working and what isn't.
And how has she handled the sale of the business? I mean, it's a totally self-made brand. It has her name on it, and now it's no longer really hers anymore. How has she kind of been taking that?
Well, it's kind of like you would suspect. This was her baby. She had created it. She grew it into this really successful product that all kinds of people loved and recognized. And so I think it was somewhat painful for her. And she hasn't ever really talked openly about that, but she did mention this to the entrepreneurs. And absolutely nobody could fault her for that. I mean, if I had done something so successful and actually really enjoyed doing it, I think it would be very hard to sell it and it would feel like a grieving process. And I think that's a little bit of what she's going through. She had partnered with a much larger company, RDO, in order to be able to compete a little more easily with all the big snack food giants out there. And RDO knows their stuff and they watched the bottom line and they knew that it was just a really good business decision to sell. And so she agreed, but I think there was quite a bit of heartache associated with that.
And that's absolutely understandable, like you said. And overall, then, what were your takeaways or your biggest impressions from this little sneak behind the curtain that you had?
Like I said, I was just really impressed with how real Dot is. How she doesn't just put up this folksy persona. I mean, she really is who she is. And it's just hard to see people who can be like that, whose character, whatever, is so solid that they just are who they are. The other thing is, she talked a little bit about how happy she was that the different factories owned by Dots seem to be operating at the same capacity and with the same teams, because of course she was worried about that. You always worry about that if there's a corporate buyout. So she was especially worried about Velva, which was their flagship manufacturer, because she is from that area. And she said, this is where the story starts. This was the beginning of Dots. And so she's been really happy that so far Hershey's has been really hands off with it, and they are doing some renovations on the property, but so far so good. Hershey's is still keeping that plant open. The other thing she said is she would love if Hershey's brought Dots to Canada, because apparently Canadians love her pretzels. Well, we know Canadians love beer, so I can imagine these pretzels are probably the perfect accent to that. So yeah, so it was really cool just to see this side of her.
And yeah, I mean, that makes all the sense in the world to me. Like you said, Dots pretzels and a beer, it makes too much sense not to do it, not to go into Canada, right?
Exactly. It might be the one thing that's better than, I don't know, what else do they eat? Poutine. But yeah, I think it's the perfect snack, and there's no reason it has to stop at the US borders. Everyone can enjoy Dots.
And that was Inforum business reporter Tammy Swift getting us up to speed on all things going on with Dots Pretzels. Tammy, once again, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Thomas. It was fun visiting with you.
That's all for this week's episode of the Inforum Business Beat podcast. I'm your host, Thomas Avanella, signing off. For the latest, check out inforum.com/business.
Inforum is proud to be a part of the Trust Project. To learn more about our ideals and commitment to trustworthy journalism, go to inforum.com/policies and standards.